those of you who may know from following my mom on everything, I'm a graphic design artist, and I designed for J. Cole, who, if you don't know who J. Cole is, he's one of the top 5 rappers in time today.
Yeah.
And so I do design work for any and everything from this day forth, and a lot of stuff's coming out, and you'll see it. And then my mom will post it, and then blah, blah, blah. All right, so I'm just gonna start. As a kid growing up, I've always liked to create. I always liked drawing and just creating things from scratch. I would come to church just to draw on the bulletin. Being good at drawing, people would always come up to me and say, "You're good at drawing, you should really think into going into a career in art." And I hated people telling me what I had to do. I hated the feeling that someone was pressuring me to do something that I'm good at. So with that being said, I avoided all art. In avoiding all art, I felt pressure to express myself in different ways. For me, it was through sports, photography, and music. Now, fast forwarding to senior year in high school, I became a star athlete. I started weightlifting, got a little cut. It was nice, you know. I saw it happening too. It was crazy. I started getting a little cut, started my chest poking out a little more. It felt good. And I was like a star athlete, star. And then second semester came, and I realized I wasn't a star athlete. I wasn't that good. So now soccer season's over, second semester's here. Everybody in school is figuring out where they're going to college and what they're going to major in. Meanwhile, I'm still figuring out what I'm going to put on my schedule, what classes I'm going to take. I remember going to my guidance counselor one day. She continued to congratulate me on the accolades and everything I've done so far. And she notified me that I had an open slot that I had to fill. She would then go on to tell me how much this open slot could benefit me in the long run, how this extra slot I could use it to take an extra AP course or take a college prerequisite. She continued to pressure me on how making this very important career-oriented decision could change my life. So with a lot of thought, prayer, I decided to get the easy A and take elementary school art. Now up to this point, I avoided all art, and if anybody asked me to draw, I would say no, unless you were grandma. In taking this class and not knowing this was my first opportunity to really kind of create from scratch, and gave me an excuse to express myself through art again. While working on my elementary art shapes and lines, my teacher walked by me and noticed I had made something on the side, and he pulled me aside and said, "You're really good at this. I think you should go into the school for art." I hated that. He continued he had no clue of the pressure that he unloaded on me, telling me that I could do art and how much that turned me off. So I told him, "Nah, I'm going to school for marketing and business, and I hate art, so don't tell me that again." And then he said, "Well, if you're really interested in marketing, I advise you to look into graphic design. That way you can combine the two." Later that week, I looked up graphic design on Google, and I got hooked the next week. I continued to do my senior project on the psychological effects graphic design has on the consumer, how a logo's shape and color can affect a customer's purchase. I settled on going to Methodist University and major in graphic design with a minor in marketing. At Methodist, I continued to express myself through sports on the soccer field, but however, this time I focused more of my energy on creating. After adjusting to college life, I began pressuring myself into wanting to be the best designer who's ever stepped foot on that campus. I graduated with a lot of accolades and a bunch of internship opportunities and self-taught knowledge. And I was ready to graduate and land my big job in New York City. But God had a different plan. God did not want me, He didn't want me to just go to New York. God wanted me to get a few rejections first. My plan on being the world famous Walter C. Barnett was going a little slow, so I had to adjust. In hopes to land that job and keeping myself busy, I reached out to a number of people who might be able to assist me or who may need graphic design assistance. One being my cousin, who is a Broadway actor. He gave me the chance to design for his solo show, The Jam. I completed that project, and after I completed that project, he invited me to New York to come see the show that I designed for. I saw the show, and that was my first time seeing my work on a New York street. And it wasn't like it was on Times Square. It was on this small street, 2nd Avenue, on a light post. I was like, yeah, I made it. I'm good now. I'm in New York. Y'all can't touch me. I'm good. Later that week, he invited me to a park in New York, and we just had a convo. We talked about, 2 hours, and the convo ended with him pressuring me and saying, I need to be in New York City. He continued, I told him, no, I don't know about that, I'm a little scared. He continued to pressure me and say, not only do you need to be in New York City, I need you to be in New York City. He pressured me more and said, no. He said, I need blah, 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 blah. And then I told him, no, I'm scared, I'm broke, my mom's gonna hate me if I do this, I'm broke again. And then he said, everybody in New York's broke. And then he ended the conversation and said, if your dreams aren't scaring you, then you're not dreaming big enough.
Amen.
I go home later that week and get a job at Walmart. I stay in that Walmart for 3 months. And then later that week, I told my boss at Walmart I'm leaving. And I walk into my parents' room, they're sitting on the bed, mom on her computer, probably on Facebook, dad half asleep watching some show on TV. And I walk in, I tell them, say, hey, I'm going to New York City next week. Not next week, next month. And they said, okay, when are you coming back? And I said, it's a one-way flight. When I moved to New York, I lived uptown. Being uptown New York, you had to take a 2-hour commute to get to the meat of New York, the city part. I would take that commute 4 or 5 times a week, no matter if it snowed, rained, hailed, windy. I took that commute, knowing that New York was a city where I wanted to be. When I get to the city, I would always have a pocket full of business cards, and I would pass it around to anybody who looked like they needed a graphic designer. If you looked like you needed a graphic designer, or you looked like you knew somebody who could use a graphic designer, you would have my card. I would make sure I give you my card and introduce myself. Some of those went well, some of those went bad. I saw people throw my card in the trash. That didn't matter to me. After 3 months of hustling in New York, I continued to try to pressure myself in growing, and I would eventually receive dozens of interviews, and I would always get dozens of rejections. When it came to job interviews, I would always be the top 2 in the interview process, and the employer would always compare me to the person that they were hiring, and they would tell me that it's basically a person who wanted to be in New York versus somebody who's already in New York. So they went with the person who already had experience being in the city. I grew discouraged after 3 months in New York without a job, all my Walmart money's gone. Grew discouraged. I started looking for flights on the way to come back to North Carolina just for a week or 2 to recalibrate and then come back. While looking for flights, I got a call from this small community center on 14th Street, East Village. And on the other side of the phone was a person who said, I got your card from a friend of a friend of a friend. Don't know who it was, but one of those friends had to be God. Amen. That was cool. I didn't write that. Later that month, I accepted a full-time job as graphic designer for the 14th Street Y. Landing this job gave me confidence that I was good enough and I had something to offer to this city. I grew with that company and continued to grow as an artist and a person. My connections I made in New York shaped a career path within the Broadway community. I accepted another position as social media designer for Spotco, the lead advertising agency for Broadway and design. There I did work for Tootsie, Cats, Bat Out of Hell, Hamilton, most of the Broadway shows I did. The pressure to be great at one thing eventually transitioned to be great at another thing. As the year went by, and moving 6 times in New York within that 1 year, all over, I got the opportunity to connect with the creative director for Dreamville, Felton Brown. He saw the work that I put in, he saw the pride that I put into my work, and he saw how much pressure I was putting on myself to be great and doing something big. One day at lunch, me, Felton, and a cousin of mine, we were just talking on our current projects, what we're doing. I was telling him about my big 14th Street Y early childhood flyer that I was doing. And he mentions that he has a logo that he wants to get done, that he needs to get done. My cousin tells him, Walter can do it. My cousin says, Walter can do it. He said, when do you need it by? Felton says, I need it next week, like in 2 days, next week. And he said, Walter can get you 10 by tomorrow. Without missing a beat, Daniel, my cousin, gets up and walks out, and it's just me and Felton at the table. Felton looks at me, he raises his eyebrows. I look at him, I'm shy, I don't want to make eye contact, but I'm looking at him, and he says, yo, do you want this? I said, yeah. I felt pressure to get him not only 10 sketches by tomorrow, but get him something with variety and good quality. I stayed up all night sketching, and I woke up with pages of sketches on my bed. I sent everything off the next morning. Not only did I have 10 sketches, but I had 10 pages. The logo I was working for was J. Cole's signature clothing line shoe, Dreamer. Cliff is wearing the shoes today, so we can just look at him later. Fast forwarding to 2020, COVID becomes a thing. I moved back to North Carolina to save money on rent. Don't have to pay the New York rent anymore. Broadway closes, so I lose half of my salary. Pressure. I continue to freelance for multiple clients, including J. Cole and Dreamville. However, I also wanted to pursue more full-time opportunities, leading me to a job at ESPN. At ESPN, I would be there for a month before they make me the lead designer for the Get Up morning show, which comes around. Thank you. As I continue to pressure myself in knowing that there's always something new I can learn, a year after accepting the ESPN job, I get a call from Dreamville team. This is about a month ago. I get a call from the Dreamville team, and they asked me, am I interested in a full-time position to work with J. Cole? I still struggle with patience. I still struggle with celebrating my wins and killing myself for my losses. I still struggle with understanding the value that people may have in what I have to say. And I still struggle in wanting to be good enough. I also still struggle with separating bad pressure from good pressure. I find the idea of pressure to be fascinating. Even more so, I find the idea of how people deal with pressure to be more fascinating. How Kobe can sink a 3 at the buzzer, how a heart surgeon can do heart surgery without shaking hands, how musicians can perform in front of millions, or dealing with how someone can be told they're preaching on a random Sunday in August. Recently, I dealt with this pressure when purchasing an engagement ring for my wife now, Nikki P. Now, don't clap that. When I was purchasing this ring, I'm going into these stores and they're telling me how much rings are, and I'm looking at them like they're crazy. I'm like, why is it so expensive for this small shiny rock? Why are diamonds so expensive? Why are we valuing these diamonds so much? I messed up and I researched and learned how diamonds are valued. That messed me up because now I can tell how much your diamonds are worth. And I didn't want to get my wife the worst, so I had to get her somewhere in the middle, me in the middle. Diamonds are formed through heat and intense pressure. Underground carbon would go through extreme heat and intense pressure within the Earth's surface, and diamonds would then emerge. Now, the way you can tell a diamond is through the 4 C's: carat, color, cut, and clarity. Carats, like everything else, is affected by the amount of pressure the coal is under. In order to be a diamond, the pressure may get heavy. In order to be a diamond, the pressure may break you and make you smaller than others. Color. Diamonds come in all colors and shapes. The darkest of diamonds are still as valuable as the lightest of diamonds. Cut. They may look shiny and good. They may look shiny and good on the outside, but diamonds do have cuts. Don't be fooled by the sparkles and shine. Don't be fooled by the new shoes. Don't be fooled by the fake chains. Diamonds have gone through intense pressure and heat and mud to get to where they are today. Clarity. It's okay to be blurred. Even the grayest of diamonds are valued. And it's okay to not have a clear-cut vision in New York City. No matter your carat, no matter your color, no matter your cut, no matter your clarity, you are valuable. So whenever you're going back to school, elementary school, high school, college, value yourself and value others around you. And bring on the pressure because you are diamonds.